Canada just hit the self-destruct button. The clown show got re-elected. And now the woke machine is back and it's coming for your money, your job, your kids, and country.
The majority of Canadians are concerned the national housing crisis is affecting their health and quality of life. That's according to a new housing survey from the Habitat for Humanity Canada. It reports 59% of Canadians say they worry about sacrificing other basic needs to pay their rent or mortgage, with 41% saying the stress of not being able to purchase a home is difficult to manage. The majority of Canadians say buying a house feels like a luxury. For renters, 88% say the goal of owning a house is now out of reach.
And while you're drowning in bills, guess what Carney's team is focused on? Reparations, pronouns, and to tax you even harder.
I see people in grocery stores picking up products, looking at the price, putting them back.
The Liberals get back in, oh my gosh, I just signed my pension check over to the Liberal government. They'll have it all before I even get it.
One of my children left Canada for better employment opportunities.
I feel for seniors, I feel for the youth. We can't afford another 4 years. We can't afford Mark Carney.
Canadians voted for progress. Now they're reaping inflation, joblessness, and zero hope for their kids. But don't worry, this isn't just Mark Carney as the Liberal Party's legacy. They wrecked the economy, blamed everyone else, and Canadians just handed them the keys again.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
240,000. That's the number of temporary foreign workers the Canadian government allowed Canadian employers to bring into the country last year. It's the most ever, on record, and almost double the number that they approved just 2 years ago. But here's another number, 1.4 million. That's about how many Canadians are without a job and looking right now. That's got some economists arguing that this program, meant to be an extraordinary measure to be used when a qualified Canadian isn't able to fill a job vacancy, that it's evolved into something else entirely.
You lost your job? Tough luck. The Liberal plan is to outsource your future and call it equity. This was supposed to be a temporary program.
The entire Liberal campaign is about trying to make you forget about the last decade. Pretend it just never happened. As if we didn't have 40-year highs in inflation. It just didn't happen. As if that we didn't see food prices rise 37% faster in Canada than they did in the United States under that lost Liberal decade. Make you forget that housing costs have doubled in Canada, rising faster than in any other G7 country, that it costs 50% more for a home on the Canadian side of the border than on the US side. They want you to forget that Canada has had the worst growth in the G7, the worst household debt in that same group of nations, that our economy has been shrinking for a decade in per capita terms, all before the Trump tariffs kicked in. They want you to forget that $500 billion of our investment dollars have fled south, and they want you to forget that all of these economic failures happened while Mark Carney was acting as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. Now, the same Liberal MPs, same Liberal ministers, same Liberal strategists are trying to get you to elect them to a fourth term in power. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, we cannot afford a fourth term. We need a change in government. But I'm here to tell you that that Liberal record is not just about the past. It's about a very dark future if they're reelected. Now, don't take my word for it. Look at this report. This is from the Government of Canada. It's got the logo of the government right here. Here, look real close. The media can't deny that it comes from the government. It says Canada at the bottom. It's got the Canada logo. And the government has confirmed this is a real document. The reason I have to say that is because its findings are so horrific. They predict what Canada will look like on the current trajectory. Now let me turn to page 3, and the section is actually entitled, and I'm quoting here, "More Snakes Than Ladders." I'm not kidding. That's what they wrote. It's written down right here. In 2040, they predict, upward social mobility is almost unheard of in Canada. Hardly anyone believes they can build a better life for themselves or their children through their own efforts. However, many worry about sliding down the social order. Now, this is bureaucraties, but I can translate. I've been reading bureaucraties in the government for long enough. What this means is, no matter how hard you work, you won't be able to get ahead. In fact, you might start falling behind. Then they say that pursuing a post-secondary education will no longer be considered a reliable path to social mobility. In other words, you can study all you want, you can learn all you want, you still won't get ahead. Then they say, in 2040, people see inheritance as the only way to get ahead. Society, listen to this, society, and I'm quoting, society increasingly resembles an aristocracy. Wealth and status passed down the generations. Family background, especially owning property, divides the haves and the have-nots. In 2040, people rarely mix with others of different socioeconomic status. In other words, there's a tiny group of aristocrats on the top, and everyone else is left behind. They don't even talk to each other. Then they go on to say in this report, the Canadian economy could shrink and become less predictable. Capital for investment in new enterprises may concentrate in the hands of a small number of very wealthy older people. Property ownership, and by extension wealth, may become even more concentrated if generations abandon the idea of single-family dwellings in favor of renting or forming alternative households. That's exactly the Liberal ideology, that nobody should own a home, everyone should just be stuck paying exorbitant rents in properties not big enough to raise families. Then they say people's mental health will suffer. More people struggle to afford rent, bills, and groceries. The resulting stress could worsen mental health challenges. This would increase demand for social services. Now, this last line is really most startling of all. They believe that people might have to look for alternative means of seeking sustenance because food prices will become so unaffordable that no longer will working class people be able to go to the grocery store anymore. So we will go from what we have now, which is people go up to the till, and when they're paying, they actually have to put things back in the bag and send them back because the bank account is emptied before they've gotten through the entire bill. Worse than that, they say people will have to hunt, fish, and forage on public lands and waterways without reference to regulations. In other words, people will be in a position where they will need to feed themselves. That's right. That's a good point. You know, it's funny.
They're not fixing the system. They're replacing it with one where your kids stay broke and obedient. You won't own anything, but you'll have the right pronouns. That's the plan.
But what most people don't know is that there is a second carbon tax he plans to stack on top of the first one, a sneaky tax he calls a fuel standard that will hit home heating, gas, our factories, and countless other higher costs. So how much will Canadians pay in higher gas and diesel prices because of the second Liberal carbon tax?
Your car, your heating bill, your groceries, all more expensive, not by accident, but by policy.
We come in agreement to see the restoring fire of the Holy Spirit sweep this land today and all that inhabits it, covering the earth as water covers the sea.